if you could go buy a shop right now, let's just say that you could pick it up for $100,000, but you had to borrow the money, and it was worth $300,000, how much debt do you have? None. You actually have $200,000 of equity, but most of the world would tell you you just got $100,000 of debt. So it's really important to define debt properly, because some people even say there's good debt and bad debt, and it's just a confusion of what they're really looking at is there's efficient loans and inefficient loans. Anytime we think we have a money problem, the money is just a symptom of a problem. First, if you can actually write a check and make the problem go away, it's not really a problem. Second, if it's actually feeling like a money problem, it's two other precious forms of capital that create that money problem. So there's two ways that you can solve these issues. First is called mental capital. Mental capital is your knowledge, it's your wisdom, it's tools, it's systems, it's insights, it's strategies. Like I shared with the group yesterday, I said, sometimes we hear it's not, what you know, but who you know. The reality is if you don't know anything, nobody wants to hang out with you. You're no fun, right? You're not bringing anything to the table. So we want to have mental capital. And then the second form of capital is relationship capital. People, networks, organizations, Shop Fix Academy, coaches, mentors, family, friends. Sometimes that relationship capital is good, sometimes it's bad, right? Like there's positive relationship capital, and we call that goodwill, and there's negative relationship capital, we call those a-holes. That's the technical term for it. I look at relationship capital like where most of the wealth is stored in this world, and where there's so much possibility and opportunity that people don't tap into. And one of the things that you can do to be a lot more productive the next quarter is be more deliberate and intentional with your relationships. So in relationship capital, I look at it in three ways. You got friends, people to be friendly with, and buddies. So friends are people that you invite into your life, you say yes to their invitations, and they want to see you succeed. You can even do business with them. They're just those great people in your life that kind of cheer you on and want to see you succeed. Like people on the friendly side are the opposite of that. Like one time I was having a cash flow struggle when I was launching the book, Killing Sacred Cows, and this girl, I won't mention her name, Bonnie, she actually told one of her friends how happy she was to see our family going through that. So she moved into the a-hole category, and I just stopped in saying yes to any of her invitations, didn't invite her to anything, and guess what? Haven't seen her in years. It's been a really enjoyable few years too. So if there's people like that in your life, you don't have to confront them and invite a bunch of drama into your life. You just simply have to be really dismissive in a positive, nice way. Like don't tell them anything great. Don't share your dreams and your vision and all that kind of stuff. Just don't spend your time there. Let them go spend time with other people they can commiserate with. Now, the third category is buddies. And buddies are awesome. They're a lot of fun to be around, but you would never do business with them, right? They're the ones that want you to take care of their car, but they don't want to ever pay for it. And they want you to do that on a Sunday when you're trying to hang out. Buddies are the type of people, I was with my friends and they were telling me about all these great things going on. Sorry, buddies. And my wife goes, hey, you're going to do all that stuff? I'm like, no, they're terrible at follow through with everything. They're just buddies, really cool to hang out with, not going to do business with. But I start with this kind of platform because I think in the world of finance, it's been very deliberate and intentional for a lot of the programs and a lot of the teachers and gurus to make it seem overly complicated and confusing. Because the more confusing it feels, the less likely people are to actually take responsibility personally, and we just kind of hand it over to them and hope for the best. But this buy, hold, and pray philosophy hasn't really worked out so well for a lot of people. What I've seen is that 98% of people when they turn 65 are not economically independent. Economic independence is where you have enough cash flow coming in, whether you show up to work or not, to cover your basic expenses. So a lot of people call that retirement. But ultimately, retirement, instead of being this dream for everyone, has become a lot more of a nightmare for people. Because when they get there, they become enslaved to three factors. Number one, well, if interest rates are low, which it's awesome as a business owner, have low interest rates, but as a retiree, it really sucks because cash flow doesn't come in very well. Second is taxes. If you're retired living off just, the interest of something, and taxes go up, your income goes down. Or third is inflation, which is kind of like this really sneaky, mean thing because it just confiscates your purchasing power every single year. One of my buddies from Texas explained it this way. He called it the Alpo curve. I'm like, what do you mean by the Alpo curve? He goes, well, when you're in retirement, inflation's like the Alpo curve because if you just add a little bit of Alpo dog food into your ground beef every year, by the time it's too expensive for ground beef, you're used to tasting Alpo. I don't understand it. It's a Texas analogy, it's just the best that they had. So he also says, that's like getting a haircut. I'm like, a haircut, like, I don't know if he's making fun of me having too long of hair, but he was actually talking about like, sometimes when people shortchange you, it's like getting a haircut, meaning you get less than what expected. So I'm just trying to learn this Texas language. It's a totally different world, but we're in Nashville, so we don't have to worry about that, right? All right, so look, this is what I really want to cover in our short time here today. One, how can I help you get really clear on how to keep more money without having to work harder or without having to scrimp or save or sacrifice? And we're gonna emphasize one particular area. We're gonna emphasize how you keep money that you're unintentionally or that you don't even wanna give to financial institutions by just having a little bit of financial insight and savvy. Cool? So I wanna go through that. I wanna make it really practical so you can put it on the ground within 24 hours of leaving here and actually have it improve your life. So a lot of that is people are overpaying on their interest. So let's focus there first and foremost, and then we'll see based upon time what else we go into. So if you want to get out of debt, I think it's really important to understand what debt really is. And can I use this cool little thing that I saw, Aaron using? Or is this exclusively for Aaron up here? Damn. So I thought, only Aaron. Do I have to push something or I just get to start drawing? All right, cool. It's purple, so that's really cute and pretty. So is that good? All right, so to figure out debt, we're gonna look at a balance sheet just basically. A balance sheet says, what are your assets versus your liabilities? And most of the world defines debt improperly. They define debt as in, I owe someone money. But there's times where you can owe someone money and actually be in the opposite of debt. Let's just define it really quick. When you have more assets and liabilities, anyone know what that's called? Net worth, equity, those are the two main terms, right? It's a good situation, more assets and liabilities. When you have more liabilities than assets, that's actually debt. So you can have liabilities and be in equity, right? Like if you could go buy a shop right now, let's just say that you could pick it up for $100,000, but you had to borrow the money, and it was worth $300,000, how much debt do you have? None. You actually have $200,000 of equity, but most of the world would tell you, you just got $100,000 of debt. So it's really important to define debt properly because some people even say there's good debt and bad debt, and it's just a confusion of what they're really looking at is there's efficient loans and inefficient loans. So let's look at loans for a minute and how those work. An efficient loan, we'll just give an equation. This equation is called your cash flow index, okay? Cash flow index just takes any loan balance. So if you write out every single loan you have, and you look at the balance of that loan, and then you divide that balance by the minimum monthly payment. So just the balance divided by the minimum monthly payment is gonna give you your cash flow index. If that number comes out greater than 100, you have an efficient loan, meaning you've borrowed quite a bit of money, but you have a relatively low payment in relationship to that. If that number's less than 50, you have a cash hog on your hands. You've borrowed an amount of money that isn't significant or you're close to paying it off and you have a really high payment, which is a big problem for economic independence. Let me get clear about economic independence. When you have enough recurring revenue that's coming in every single month, either from assets that produce cash flow or entrepreneurial income, is when you have other people doing work that you're getting paid for. Let me be crystal clear about both these things. It doesn't mean that you just get to sit back and do nothing and it comes in forever. There's this whole myth and notion of mailbox money. That doesn't really happen for very long. If you're gonna be too passive about it, it'll just pass you by. So what we're looking at is, where can you create enough recurring revenue or cash flow from investments or from your business that you just have to monitor and manage, but you don't have to do all the details or be the technician in. When that covers your basic expenses, you're economically independent. When that covers your basic expenses, you're economically independent, which gives you a massive advantage. Because if we go back here, imagine that you had enough assets that were creating enough income to cover 100% of your expenses. What that would say is, from that point, all of your active income, when you're actually doing the work and earning a living, you could take that income and build more assets. See, most of the world's trying to save 10% of their income and try to earn 10% on that income because they say that the stock market's gonna get them 10%, but right now, who's feeling a good 10% in the market based upon what's going on? You're there working in your business, taking all this risk, and then you're handing money over to the so-called financial professionals and pundits that are really just gathering the asset and handing it off to someone else. And then when it doesn't work out, they use terms like, oh, you're in it for the long haul. Well, who's excited about the long haul, by the way? Like, what if the burpee workout would have been the long haul workout? We're like, you're just gonna go till someone passes out. Like, that would be terrible. Like, when does the long haul end, by the way? I guess when you die, but then your kids or your pets inherit it after that if they're still alive. Like, it's just not a good idea. It's the best way not to take responsibility in finance. Just tell people, oh, you're in it for the long haul, right? So I don't want you to be in it for the long haul, trying to scrimp and save and sacrifice, because if you're just thinking about what you can eliminate or what you can cut out, you stop thinking about what you can produce. And this is worth writing down. No one shrinks their way to wealth. Wealth is a game of value creation. Wealth is a game of service. It's solving other people's problems. And if we get in a mindset that's all about what we can eliminate or what we can cut out, we can cut out very productive things, right? Like you go, oh, well, I don't want to pay for a hotel and go to Nashville or pay for my, coaching. Well, then all of a sudden you're making less money even though you saved money. There's a difference between investing and saving, and too many people get caught in a saver's mentality, and it keeps them from ever being wealthy. And I don't know why I'm yelling. I'm not upset or anything. I'm just making a point here, right? Like, nobody's in trouble yet, okay? So if you could get your assets to cover your basic expenses, that means all of your income can go back in to building and growing. And think about that advantage. Everyone else is just living paycheck to paycheck, just trying to get by. And guess what? You have full control over what you want to do with your money. And if it doesn't work how you wanted it to, it takes longer, you still have your foundation set. You still have the other person that, if you have a significant other that's more of a saver than maybe you are, because I find most entrepreneurs are not actually the savers. The spouses, like the entrepreneur, we spend optimism. Everything's gonna work out. It's gonna go according to plan. It's gonna be phenomenal. If we had a good month this month, it's gonna be even better next month, and there's never gonna be turnover or any problem. But when it happens, it can put us into financial constraint or unfortunately put our mindset into scarcity. And no amount of luck, no saving, no discipline, no rate of return, or no financial advisor can save anyone if they get stuck in scarcity paradigm. Scarcity is the greatest destroyer of wealth. It's where we let fear, doubt, and worry run our lives. It's where we start thinking that, there's only a certain amount to go around, and if someone else gets something, it's because they were lucky or they took it from someone else, and that will destroy wealth. Look, even if there's a finite amount of money, which there isn't, because as I'm saying these words, they're printing more right now. Just kind of keeps coming in, right? I don't even know if they print it. They can just put it on computer screens at this point. But the bottom line is, even if there's a finite amount of money, there's an infinite number of times it can exchange hands. And every time it exchanges hands, it creates more wealth. So for those in scarcity, they think it's a win-lose, zero-sum game, and that there's only so much to go around. But on the other hand, if you could think in a production mindset, in a producer paradigm where you create more value in the world than you take from it, the bottom line is it's a value creation economy, and dollars follow value. So those people with the greatest reach or the most impact are gonna make the most money. And I'm still yelling. I am mic'd up. They were worried about if the mic fell off. I'm like, hell, I think everybody'd still hear me, even if it did. So let's get back to efficient versus inefficient loans. So this cash flow index, if you take your balance and divide it by your minimum monthly payment, it's gonna spit out that number. Less than 50 is highly inefficient. 50 to 100 is what I would call the danger zone, and greater than 100 is a very efficient loan. So as we go through this, I'll just kind of share a quick story. I was speaking in Minneapolis, and I remember it because I spoke in Cancun. It was 82 degrees. I flew to Minneapolis. It was negative 22 degrees, which is just a very harsh reality, right? By the way, that's all people talked about was the weather once we were there. And once I got into the warm, cozy confines of this event with 400 people, I was feeling really good. But as soon as I started talking, there was a woman that kept raising her hand. I hadn't even started really speaking, but she had her hand up. I gotta tell you, as a speaker, I thought, well, maybe my zipper's down. How do I check that really slyly? It's, oh, okay, we're good there. I'm like, why is she raising her hand? I haven't even said anything yet. So finally, she just stands up. I'm 2 minutes into the talk, so I'm like, yes. And she's like, hey, I'm a CPA. My husband, signed up with your program 13 months ago because we had a 9-year, 9-month plan to get completely out of debt, which she meant no loans, but she said debt. And she goes, and your firm said that you could do that with a third of the time shaved off. So we could probably do it in 6 or 7 years. And that's not what happened. Now I'm thinking at this point, maybe negative 22 isn't that bad. This is not the way I want to start any talk. She goes, as a matter of fact, 13 months in, we only have 17 and a half months left till all the loans are completely paid off. So I now felt much better. Felt like I got taller in that moment, louder, excited. And I'm gonna tell you exactly what we did so that you can start applying this to you. And look, if you are completely out of any loans, or what people would say out of debt, you can now take this and help your employees do the same thing without having them, get into financial chaos or financial ruin. Because I'll tell you this, hard work with the wrong philosophy still equals bankruptcy. Hard work and not understanding money still makes life extraordinarily complicated. So if I can make it a little bit simpler, help you keep a lot more, I think that'd be really good. Now, as you use your cash flow index, here's the first rule. If you're gonna pay off loans, only pay extra to one loan at a time. The cash flow index tells you which loan to pay extra to. Now, for some of you, you're gonna do this calculation, you're gonna go, hey, my lowest cash flow index is my 0% interest rate loan on my car, or my 0% interest rate balance transfer on my credit card. Why would I ever pay off the 0% when I have something that's double digit? Here's why. We're not looking at this isolated in one factor. We're looking at how do we improve your cash flow. When you improve your cash flow, it improves your debt to income, which is for every dollar you earn, what percentage has to go towards loans. If we improve that, all of a sudden you become a better borrower, and then we can go through the other steps, which is renegotiate interest rates. Every interest rate you have is negotiable. And I wanna give you some specific things that you can go negotiate right away, because you could either restructure or refinance, and all of a sudden we can change the cash flow index through you being really intentional. And here's the simplest thing that any of you could do with this. If you have any savings or any investments that are underperforming right now, and you have any loans that cost more than you're comfortable with, like any loan over 5% especially, why not consider just cashing out the underperforming investment and paying off the loan? See, if you had a certificate of deposit at the bank earning 3%, and you had a business line of credit that you're being charged 6%, do you realize if you pay that off, that's 100% return? If you're buying something for $3 and selling it for $6, that's 100% markup. So if you're getting paid $3, but you're paying $6, it'll be 100% improvement in the actual interest and financing by paying that off, and it's a guaranteed return. So look and see, do you have a 401k loan that's a lower interest rate than your other loans? Do you have, savings or a fund or anything like that you could pay this off and improve your cash flow? Because if you improve it, it might also improve your mindset. You might also just feel better not having that loan out there, and you could be more productive because you're spending less time thinking about what to do with those loans and more time thinking about what to do to grow the business. And even if you're in a place where you're thinking more about, I gotta get this taken care of, than you're thinking about producing, I have one other recommendation. Even when you figure out your cash flow index, you know which loan to pay extra to and which loans to pay the minimum to, there might be a 90-day window where that's the next quarter before you come back to this event, where you go, you know what, why don't you just pay the minimum to every single loan you have, find one initiative that you learn here that's gonna help you grow and build the profitability and revenue of your business, invest there, pay the minimums, and then 90 days later, you'll have more cash flow that you can attack these loans with. Yes, I'm a financial guy telling you not to pay off your loans in the next 90 days, but the reason is, look, I was in Newark, New Jersey. Anyone ever been in Newark? It smells like urine last time I went there. It was not, sorry for those from Newark, but like Newark just has a unique smell to it, and I wanted to leave. But the problem is, as I got on the flight at the airport, they said, hey, we're number 22 for departure. It's like, great, we're gonna just be on here for a couple hours before we actually get in the air. I was a little bit frustrated. Then 5 minutes later, they said, actually, they opened another runway. We're gonna head east, get in the air, then we'll turn around once we get up there and head back to Utah. Well, guess what? We went the wrong direction for a few minutes, but we shaved off 45 minutes by doing that because we got in the air, we got up going fast versus sitting there being stagnant, and I feel the same way around loans. That if it's grabbing you and dragging you into scarcity, maybe the best thing you could do is shake that scarcity, invest in yourself, because your ability to produce is the most critical piece. You're your greatest investment, not a stock, not a bond, not a piece of real estate, not even your business. So if you have the right mindset, if you get into a more abundant place, if you start thinking productively, that's where wealth exists. Okay? All right, so cash flow index is balance divided by the minimum payment. Look at your other investments or savings. Does it make sense just to pay off a loan? If you pay off that loan, Let me give you how you can restructure, renegotiate, and really improve your cash flow here. There's 4 C's that help you when it's improving cash flow with your loans. The first one is having the right credit score. You want to have a 780 or above on your credit score. If you don't have that, well, if there's errors on there, which 83% of people get an error on their report sometime in their life, you can debate up to 3 errors at a time. So pull your credit report. You can get a free credit report every year. You can just Google, free credit report. There's annual credit report, Credit Karma. There's so many services out there. Just look at it. If it's less than 780, first, correct any errors that are on there. Second is if you have any credit cards or lines of credit that are not business lines of credit, this is one of the sneaky, tricky things that they do to lower your credit score. Let's say you have a $10,000 credit card. You've only charged $2,000 on it. If they don't report that you have a $10,000 limit and you charge $2,000, it looks like you've maxed out your credit cards on your utilization rate or your loan to value. So if they're not reporting what's available, that will lower your score. Why would they do that? Well, because then you have less offers and less competitive things. So that's another error to kind of look for. If you have past due things that you didn't pay, don't pay them off immediately. Get a letter of deletion first, and then when you pay it off, it won't hurt your credit score, it will help you. And one of the ways that you can really improve your credit score is if you have a paid off car, refinance it, get a car loan. A car loan actually helps your credit score. It's an installment loan. It's a fixed period of time. It's typically a really low interest rate, so you can pay off credit cards or other business lines that are a higher interest rate. You'll lower that interest rate, and that installment loan will start to increase your credit score rapidly. Once you get over 780, you can just call your credit card company, and you can say, hey, I'm looking to transfer. Cancel's usually a really good word too, and they'll get you to the right department. If you call the first person that answers when you have a credit card to get a better interest rate, they don't have the authority. But if you say, can I get to your deals department? I'm looking to cancel, I'm looking to balance transfer, they put you into the retention department, and the very first thing they do is look to lower your interest rate if you have good credit, okay? So the first thing is get a good credit score. You could refinance things like a car loan, even a mortgage, get lower interest rates. The second thing is you want to have the right collateral. So using a car, right, you have collateral. Using a home, you have collateral. That's going to lower your interest rate because it's less risk for the institutions. The third C is cash flow reporting. You just want to make sure that you have a good cash flow statement that tells a good story to the banks so they want to lend to you. And then finally, you want the right connections. Some banks are really good at financing certain things, other ones are not. So you want to find the right ones for your industry that have the kind of money they're going to be the easiest to get to. So first thing is, do you have any underperforming assets you could pay off a loan? That boosts your cash flow, that lowers your debt to income, that's going to improve your credit. Second, we want you to look at your credit, look and see if there's anything you can do to clean that up. Then you want to restructure or renegotiate your loans. Then after you've restructured or renegotiated, then you're going to pay the minimum to every single loan that you have other than one, and that's the only one you pay extra to till it's paid off. Then you free up that cash to go attack the next loan. If you're deeply in scarcity, don't pay any of those off, pay the minimum, and put it towards improving the production and profitability of your business. Is that hiring someone? Is that adding a bay? What is it? Like, find out for your business what's gonna help you increase your profitability, increase your revenue, and then take that increase 90 days from now and start paying those loans off. Now, to break this down even further, like, people ask all the time, like, should I have this loan? Should I not have this loan? And you can watch financial gurus all the time. They have very strong opinions. Either always have a mortgage because of the write-off, or never have a mortgage because you feel enslaved to it. My thought is, first off, what creates peace of mind for you? Who are you individually? Personal finance should be very personal. The second thing is what makes economic sense, and here's how we figure that out. There's something called cost of money. Cost of money is your highest, best, sustainable return that you can get, right? Like, in your business, you might be able to grow 100% in a year, but it's hard to do that year in and year out because you eventually become so big and it becomes saturated, right? Or you start to create new complexities. So that's not your cost of money. For some people, your cost of money might be that 17% you're paying to American Express, because it's 17% anytime you use the dollars for anything other than paying that down. That's what that money's costing you. So you always have an interest cost, whether you pay cash for something or whether you finance. The interest cost of paying cash, sorry, I'm neglecting you guys over here. I'm letting this be an invisible barrier to me. but look, I just crossed it. Just like this invisible financial barrier you guys are gonna cross after this, right? But you always have an interest cost. If you pay cash for something, you forfeit the right to earn interest, right? You forfeit the right to grow your business with that cash if you're paying off a loan. Or if you borrow the money, it's pretty obvious what interest you pay. It's whatever the cost is that you're writing the check for. So there's always an interest cost. To drill this down a little bit further, this is pretty early for all this financial shit, but you guys are hanging in here, so I'm really happy about that. All right, so to drill this down further, like imagine I'm willing to lend you money right now at 0%. How much do you want? Man, you guys are like I love the greediness. It's really good. All of it, yes. Like that was the quickest response at this time of the day ever. Love it, yeah, exactly, because you know you can do better than 0%, right? You have a better cost of money. You have a better investment opportunity than 0%. Now, how fast do you want to pay me back? Never, like it was never. That was not even like slowly, just a clear never. Mental note, don't lend money to this group. Okay, I'm good now. No, that's exactly right, because you can outdo that. Now, what if it was 1% whose answers stay pretty much the same? Because your cost of money is higher than 1%. But if I said 20%, whose answers drastically change? Because all of a sudden, that's pretty expensive money. So you want to measure everything based upon your cost of money. What can you get and what are you paying? So for me, I have the money to pay off my mortgage. I choose not to because I can earn more than the 4% that it's costing me. But at the same time, I have a cabin that I paid cash for because I'm just like, I don't want the hassle and it just kind of feels good to have it paid off. One is an economic decision, the other one's a peace of mind decision. But it's really important to know this because it helps you be in the driver's seat with making your personal finances personal again. Knowing your cost of money, then looking at your cash flow index, and then looking at your loans, and then restructuring those loans, paying off the inefficient ones, and then only paying extra to one loan at a time. Is this helpful? Things that you could put on the ground and that you could implement to improve your financial life? All right, cool. I almost said any questions, but dude, Aaron would have totally been pissed because we're doing breakout sessions for questions, right? All right, I'm a good boy. I can do what I'm asked. And I'm very apparently emotionally sensitive too. Just I'm remembering that, obviously sensitive about it, that I'm bringing it up. Okay, so we've got a little bit of idea on how to keep more of what you make, how to design things around loans and interest. There's 3 other areas where you can do these types of things to keep a lot more of what you make without budgeting or cutting back. See, there's 3 ways to live within your means. The first one is you can budget, but budgeting sucks. Budgeting is all about what you cut out and you eliminate, and you don't get wealthy through that. You only really need to budget heavily when you're a train wreck. When you're a train wreck and you're spending more than you make, budgeting is your friend. When you're making more, here's the way you can eliminate budgeting forever and actually be wealthier because of it. It's a book from the 1920s written by George S. Clason called The Richest Man in Babylon. Anyone ever read it? Okay, great book. The whole lesson of the book was pay yourself first. So go to your bank when this event's over and set up a separate account. Call it your wealth capture account. That separate account is where you're gonna pay yourself first. It could be checking, savings, money market. It doesn't matter. You're not trying to get a big return on it. You're just trying to make sure it's separated from your personal account. See, if there's too much money in a personal account, I feel like it's easy to invent reasons to spend it. Like a business has an insatiable appetite. There's always things that we could do to improve our business, to make it more beautiful, to have whatever it is, to have the coolest technology, to have, whatever that happens to be. And if the money's sitting around, it's pretty easy for it to get spent. Same on the personal side. Maybe not you, maybe someone you know and live with. There's the one that might spend it, I don't know. Don't know your life and your relationships. But you gotta be really careful just leaving it sitting there because it becomes commingled. And since I heard a milk analogy earlier, imagine you have a glass of milk and then you pour some chocolate into it and then you stir it. That's now commingled. You're not unringing that bell. So it's gonna be really hard to make that back into regular milk. Same thing happens with your money. Don't commingle it. Set up this separate account and pay yourself first. Now the percentage to pay yourself first, this is not of your business revenue, this is of your personal income. When you're paying yourself is 18%. I know it sounds like a little bit high, but the good news is I just gave you one way, and there's 3 more ways to find that 18% without cutting back. And remember, done is better than perfect, progress over perfection, right? So just done, just get something going there. The reason for 18% is because Well, 3% just because of inflation, right? 3% because of inflation. But did you know that like if cars get new features, the government doesn't consider that inflation, it considers it technological change. So I still have a 1976 Chevy pickup that you get to roll the window down like this. I adore the truck, I gotta be honest, but I'm from a small town, so I still have a gun rack. If I drive it, I make my wife sit right next to me, just like the old days. It's just really cool. The kids call it the crazy truck just because it has the worst suspension you've ever seen, but it still sounds awesome. So anyway, and I actually can't even fix that. So imagine putting me in today's technology of vehicles. Thank God you guys exist. Like, I'm the perfect client. I just want to pay the money and have the stuff taken care of, right? There's no haggling. It's just, I know I can't do it myself. And if I even tried, things will break and things will go really bad. So 3% for inflation, 3% for technological change. Because we buy things now that didn't even exist in the past. Anyone in here not have a cell phone? Yeah, so cell phones, like even the homeless people have cell phones now, right? Like it's just a must of life. So like cell phones, that's just a technological advancement. Another 3% is for something called planned obsolescence. Planned obsolescence is like, we moved into a house that had a Viking dishwasher. That sounded like a really badass brand, by the way. I was thinking, that's awesome. I found out it's just Vikings licking the dishes so they're never quite clean. So we had to replace the dishwasher with a new one. That's planned obsolescence. I'm not necessarily better off, I just had to have something that worked. I was also informed we can't move into a new home with an old washer and dryer. Didn't know these rules, figured them out later, but that's planned obsolescence, right? We're just replacing things, not necessarily better off. So we got technological change, we've got planned obsolescence, we've got taxes and inflation. Well, taxes is the next one we talked about, inflation. So taxes, government's only $21 trillion in debt, no big deal. I'm sure they'll have it taken care of any day soon. Who thinks taxes could potentially go up in the future based upon that? Yeah, so what if taxes go up in the future? We need to have a little bit of a buffer for that. So that's another 3%, getting us to 12%. Now, the next two are my favorite two. The next 3% is propensity to consume, which more simply said is, a luxury once enjoyed becomes a necessity, right? A luxury once enjoyed becomes a necessity. Just think about how I grew up in a small coal mining town, and what I didn't know then that I know now, I can't go back. There's just certain luxuries, and I wouldn't even consider them luxuries, necessities is the better term for it, right? That I don't want to go back to. So whether that's food, whether that's travel, like how those kind of things work. So that's 15% now. Now, part of that 15% is how you handle your loans. It's going to be, the other key categories are going to be your taxes, because 93% of business owners overpay their taxes, and not by a little, typically by a lot. And that's all bottom line cash. Or investments, there's a lot of hidden fees, unnecessary commissions, non-performing pieces that can come back into your life. Or insurance, there's plenty of duplicate coverages and improper structure. And if we can find that money and put it back, it helps you get to this 15%. And then you actually set up one more account for the last 3%. This is called your living wealthy account. Benjamin Franklin said, wealth isn't the man that has it, but the man that lives it, right? So it's not just about having something, it's about the experiences, it's about quality of life, it's about the enjoyment, it's about relaxation, recreation, and rejuvenation. So having this other account, if you hit your 15%, then you put 3% in it, and it's just for guilt-free spending. Guilt-free spending. Now, it's important to know there's 4 types of expenses. The first type of expense is a destructive expense. Like, I'm pretty sure heroin's always destructive, so you should probably not have that, right? That's a good one to eliminate, but destructive expenses would be like borrowing to consume. Destructive expenses would be putting you into actual debt, not just having a loan, and having no asset to back that. Want to get rid of a destructive expense. The second type of expense is a lifestyle expense. The rule for a lifestyle expense is you pay cash. Don't borrow to consume. Pay cash for lifestyle expenses, with the exception of maybe 2 things. A home and a car. Even though a car is a depreciating asset for most, it's still something that's pretty useful to get around, and if you don't have the cash to pay for it, waiting for that might cost you more than just borrowing the money. Or a home, even though you might not be getting cash flow from the home, at least there's an asset attached to it. So those are 2 areas that are more lifestyle expenses that you may choose to borrow. Everything else, pay cash for. Want to go on a trip, want to buy a cool toy, like pay cash for. The third thing is a protective expense. We hear all the time about a negative savings rate in America, that people aren't saving enough money. That's not true. People are saving money, they're just not prepared for financial surprises. And all of us are in store for financial surprises. 90% of those don't have to derail us if we plan properly. So a protective expense is enough savings and liquidity. Before you invest a bunch of money, have 6 months of expenses set aside in your savings account so you have staying power, so you have a peace of mind fund, so you're not one incident away from having to borrow money or go backwards, right? Or create unnecessary stress that you lose sleep or you get overly frustrated and bitter about it. Like, have that liquidity. When I was a kid, my dad said that when money burned a hole through my pocket, right? Because I wanted to spend it as soon as I had it. And so it's good to change those habits and adopt a more adult behavior to say, I want to have enough savings that if there's a health issue, a family issue, a business issue, I can handle it. I've got money set aside. Even more importantly, the real way to wealth when it comes to your finances is going to be in the transfer of wealth that's happening over the next few years. We're going to hear about tons of losses in the market and in real estate. And the people with the most cash during that time are going to make the most money in the shortest period of time. Everyone else try to do it over the long haul. The other people get to make money right out the gate. So when everybody else is in a cash crunch and out here learning about this stuff, there's going to be opportunities. Will you be able to capitalize on those opportunities? Don't worry if you're not earning a high rate of return on your savings account. Nobody is. But the bottom line is having that cash there allows you to produce differently and capitalize on things when they come your way. So build up that liquidity, build up that safety net. There's not a lot of people getting paid, if any, for commissions for you getting a savings account set up. That's why it's neglected so often. Make sure it's in a separate account. So this Living Wealthy account, you just get to spend it on things that are not destructive. They're for lifestyle expenses. Protective expenses aren't overly exciting for your Living Wealthy account. Make sure you have those handled. And the fourth type of expense is the game changer. The fourth type of expense is where the wealth really comes from, and that is a productive expense. An amazing employee is a productive expense. A great coach is a productive expense. The right technology is a productive expense. You put in $1, more than $1 comes out. You want to continue to increase those as long as you can manage them. When the recession hits, which we're in the second longest period since a recession, when it hits, a lot of people are going to cut back. And let's just use 2 organizations as an example. There was a time where McDonald's only had twice the market share of Burger King. Like it was like 6% to 3%. And then a recession hit. And Burger King, they decided we're gonna hunker down, we're gonna cut back, we're gonna just reduce costs, and they reduced tons of productive expenses. McDonald's said we're gonna invest our way through this. We're gonna buy more real estate that we can afford now because we couldn't afford it before because of the price on it. We're gonna advertise even more, we're gonna keep our menus, the price is the same, and we're not gonna fire anyone, we're gonna actually double our marketing. And they went from 6% to 51% during that time. Right? So it's a production mindset, a productive expense. And if you cut the wrong expenses during the wrong time, you actually start to shrink. See, even during the Great Depression, which I wasn't alive for, but I like to do a little studying back on history, Professor Gregory at the University of Washington said that 1/3 of the people during the Great Depression were exactly what we would see in the pictures, where they were starving, they were dirty, they were hungry, they were struggling. He said, but 1/3 of America actually maintained. Typically harder to maintain, but they maintained. But during the Great Depression, it was an unprecedented amount of millionaires that were built. 1/3 of the population actually grew their wealth. Why? It comes down to when you get sucked into a recessionary mindset, thinking about scaling and cutting back, you start destroying relationship capital, you don't develop your mental capital, and your financial capital becomes elusive. It evades you, it leaves you. So just get your foundation handled, address your loans properly, improve your cash flow, invest in yourself, and you're gonna be so much better off than everyone else out there that has the wrong information and the wrong mindset that is gonna work harder and go broker. In my 20s, that's what I thought. I'm gonna work harder than everyone else so I can live a life like no one else in the future. The bottom line is, sacrifice sucks. When sacrifice in the wrong context has to start to do foolish things like cut back, reduce, eliminate, instead of produce, create value, and solve problems, guess what? You don't have to be in that struggle financially for the length that most people are. If you just have the right information with the right intention and you take action on it, you'll be a lot wealthier, have a much better life, and hopefully that means that you can build a life that you love, create a legacy that lasts, and legacy becomes something you live by example, not just something you leave behind, so that we instill a work ethic with the right philosophies and vision and values for future generations. Because I gotta tell you, the world needs a little bit of help. I don't know, I don't even watch the news anymore because I already know what it is. People did dumb shit. I don't have control over it, so I'm just gonna focus on the things I do have control over and spend time with people like you that are business owners that can actually do something about it, because small business employs a lot more people than big business. And all we hear about on the news is all the wrongdoing of big business, not all of the right doing of small business. So get your financial house right, get it in order, produce a lot more, and build a life that you love.
Want to master your money? Want to figure out the things that you could do to improve your finances? Click here and check out more videos like this on Money Matters.